introduction. I'm Emma, I'm a GP. So I'm at 3 days a week for the primary care gambling service. As Sharon said, we were there right at the beginning in 2019 when we had 0 patients. And we developed the service to what she's presented today, which we're really proud of. But the other arm, when we first talked about what we were going to achieve, was that we were going to think about how we're going to get GPs on board. And Drew, I don't know if you can move my... When I move my piece of paper, move the slide on. Yeah.
There's a click on there.
Is there a clicker? Let me just practice.
Right arrow go forward.
Okay, let's see. If not, just move on. Okay, so in terms of, as I was saying, we were thinking, how can we get GPs to engage with this? And why do we think GPs needed to engage this? And this is before we knew anything about the system, the treatment system, the support system. We were thinking they're in exactly the right place, because the evidence is that in a year, GPs see 90% of the population. Now, you could argue that people experiencing gambling harms are in the other 10%, and many of them are probably, but we also know that those that are affected would be coming to the GP. And we know that people come to the GP for all different kinds of things, and we know that they're not going to come in and sit down and say, I'm experiencing a gambling harm. But what we do know is that they do come in with their mental health problems, they do talk about relationship breakdown, they do talk about stress related to money. And so at this point, when we were starting out, we thought if we can capture this and get GPs engaged, we think we can find lots of clients, patients out there that can be referred into our new service when there was only 0 patients. But also we recognised from our early work, and which we all know in this room, which is why we're here, is that early identification reduces harm. So we had a challenge, and the challenge was, how are we going to do this? Because in answer to your question, have I moved on? I can't see, let me yeah. The challenge is, in answer to your question, is that GPs are so far behind the curve, they don't want to know about this, they've got no interest in it, and it's been a battle. And so when we started out, we were thinking, how can we engage with them to make this work? So when we started out, had some focus groups with GPs, and these were the main themes that came out. So the first ones were like most of the public. They don't see gambling as a health issue. They feel that the person has brought it on themselves. They're not competent in knowing how to manage it. So if someone says, I'm gambling, they don't know what to say. I relate it a little bit to, I'm a GP trainer, and I get people in their 20s who have just come out of hospital and they come into the GP practice and they suddenly are having consultations, especially the boys, with 50-year-old women talking about the menopause. And they have no idea what to do, because in hospital you don't prescribe HRT in hospital, it's very much a primary care thing. And you know that patient has left the room when you look at their notes and you do a feedback with them, and their needs have been unmet. And so you say to this person, you've listened to them, but you've done nothing for them. And this is what would happen with gambling if we don't really start focusing on, do GPs understand gambling harms, do they know where to send people? So these really, really struck me, that due to not being competent, they wouldn't end up helping individuals, and we know that from lived experience as well. They also said that they didn't feel comfortable, so they lacked the communication skills really to talk to a patient about gambling, and also they were worried that it would put a barrier up between them and their patients. And I think that really represents the relationship you have with a GP. In the media, everyone thinks that GPs are burnt out and tired, but actually it's the most privileged job ever, because you see people at their saddest, you see them at their happiest, you see them at end of life, you see them when they come with something they're scared of. They might have a breast lump, they might have a headache, they think they've got a brain tumour. And you basically do that journey with them. And so if you're in a good GP practice, you have patients that trust you. And so it really is an issue for GPs, when you have to bring up something which you do worry is going to cause a breakdown in that trust. And unfortunately, rightly or wrongly, that's where we are with gambling at the moment. It's still got a huge amount of stigma around it, and also the unconscious bias of the healthcare professional that's talking to the patient still comes into play. The other really interesting thing, I mean, it's hard to think when we are at a gambling conference and we're all really engaged in this and we're drowning in services and treatment providers from what we've seen. They had no clue at all where they would send someone for help. They didn't know about the helpline. Some of them wrote Gamblers Anonymous because they're thinking of AA, and they said IAP services, but they never had heard of Gamble Aware, they hadn't heard of GamCare, they hadn't heard of Break Even, I hate to say it, but you know, they really hadn't. So I suppose what I'm trying to say to you is that it really is a battle to get this group of people on board. So we thought, what are we going to do? And actually, when we started our service in 2019 with 0 patients, our initial thought was we're going to go and we're going to talk to GPs and we're going to go to their practices and we're going to their conferences. But actually COVID hit. So actually we were in an office with 3 of us, with no patients, we couldn't go anywhere. And to the point, you know, if the phone rang, we were so surprised that nobody actually answered it, and we missed it because we were like, you answer it, you do it. And then if you did answer it, it would be someone talking about shredding paper or something. It would be like, oh. But what we thought is, let's just go ahead then. We've got time. COVID gave us time, so let's write down a curriculum for primary care. And so that's what we did. I did. So we developed a capability framework which really wrote down 7 levels of competency for healthcare professionals in primary care. Whether you are the receptionist, the care coordinator, the social prescriber, the nurse, the pharmacist, the physio, we want everyone to be thinking about gambling harm. And so the 7 capabilities start off just talking about gambling as a practice. You have something called practice learning time, and the beauty of that is you bring the whole practice in. So it's talking about violent patients, or it might be about confidentiality, and everyone can contribute from whatever their role is in primary care to say how it affects them. And so we did that on gambling, and we encourage other practices to do that now. And it's amazing, everybody has been touched by gambling. Very few people didn't have a story. So the competencies go from that right up to initial patient assessment, to risk, to treatment, and then really thinking about providing support and treatment at an ICB level, so on a regional place-based level. And what we found, and this bit, this is the posh bit in my talk, these 3 things, remember this and use this in your talks. If you want to teach anybody anything, okay, you have to give them a reason, you have to give them role legitimacy about why they need to take a bigger responsibility. So we realised that in our teaching programme we had to do that. We had to give them the knowledge and the skills to be able to competently talk about gambling, just like I teach the youngsters in my practice how to manage HRT, and you have to give them time and support and the right, if you like, comms to know what to do with that patient. And of course, funding helps as well. So after having written this down in COVID, we then started to, I'm just trying to check on the right bit, develop it. And I am a GP, so I went to the Royal College of GPs, which is a national body that looks after all GPs. Well, when I say looks after, it takes a lot of money from us to be part of them, but it does the exam to become a GP, so every GP in the UK goes through it. So we went to them and we said, look, we've written this, what do you think? And of course they were a bit sceptical at first, but after a while meeting the right people and knocking on the right doors, we got them to produce a gambling harms hub on the Royal College website. We got them to make me a clinical champion, so they have clinical champion for sepsis, clinical champion for lung cancer. So I managed to become the clinical champion for gambling harms, which is really was a day of celebration because we never thought the Royal College would get to that stage. So really that was a mark in the diary that we were getting somewhere. And we made it Harms Hub. Now I won't go through it too much, but it's got e-learning, so 4 e-learnings, very short because they're written by me, and I know GPs don't concentrate for longer than, well, maybe 20 minutes, but they're 30 minutes. And also there is one about what you do as a GP, a walkthrough. If someone sits down in a chair and talks about any harm, we need the GP to recognise that. There is patient resources and also a diary date for a number of webinars that we've done since June 24 and going into 25. And we also, and I'm going to give a shout out to Beacon here because we've got an accreditation package as well, which is for practices. And I learnt about this by going to a Beacon conference and them talking about their charter for places in the public sector or in the voluntary sector to get signed up. And our accreditation practice certificate is really important. So what it does is that if you've been to any of our training or you personally have done the online training on the Gambling Harms Hub, we will accredit your practice. And the really important thing about that is that you can have the poster up in your waiting room that is saying to the patient, talk to these guys, they know about gambling, they will help you. Because one of the biggest battles, yes, is the GP's issues, but it's also that people don't know you can go to the GP to talk about gambling. And actually, many of them don't want to. That was the other thing I didn't put down. You know, the NHS cannot do it all. We need the third sector to really help us as well. So, in terms of what happened, I'm nearly there, but what really happened this year, since 2019, is that the NICE guidelines got published. And if you publish a NICE guideline, then healthcare professionals sit up, and I can't claim that I've read every NICE guideline that has come out, but it definitely puts a bit of pressure on the topic that you've got NICE guidelines for. GPs are very responsive to funding or, although we don't like it, to CQC assessment. And if you can show that you have kept up with the latest NICE guidelines in your practice, the latest evidence-based medicine, then that will get you, good standing when they come to see what your educational pathway is about. So I was on the NICE Guideline Committee as a GP. There were lots of different stakeholders, and it went on for 2 years, a very long 2 years. And what we came out with in the end, which I was really pleased with, is that GPs don't have to do anything. All they have to do is be aware of gambling and ask about it. So just when they ask in a mental health consultation, or if someone's very stressed, or they've got money worries, or they've lost their house, or their relationships breaking down, just as you would ask, are you drinking too much? Are you using any substances? Are you smoking too much? Are you looking after your well-being? We want GPs to ask about gambling. And all we want them to do then is to be aware of where they can offer help. Okay, so wherever they are in the country, we want them to be able to go, don't worry, there is a voluntary sector organisation up the road, we've got an NHS clinic, or you can go to the primary care gambling service. And that's all we want. And there was this big afternoon of, GPs can do a lot more, but they really can't, because if you imagine you do your clinical day and then you get given all the additional stuff, like at the moment, I've got to be up to date on all the latest COVID vaccinations, the doses, the side effects, who to give it to. And you don't do that in your clinic, you do that at night after your clinic or at lunchtime. So to give GPs another massive ask, it would have just been a blanket no. So the fact we came out of the NICE guidelines with us just asking the question, identifying and signposting was a real win, even though I run a service for support and treatment. That was what I know GPs in general in the UK can cope with. So it was very simple. We need to do awareness training. This was the nice guidelines for GPs. We need to signpost them into local or national support and treatment systems, and we need to teach the GPs that gambling is basically a behavioural addiction. So just when you're thinking about smoking and drinking and drugs, think of gambling as an illness. So, where are we? So these are the stats, okay? So then we've started this now, so we've started our training with the Royal College, and actually having the Royal College stamp, it really endorses the training programme, and GPs will engage with that. And if you look at the bottom numbers, that's where we are now. So since June 24, we have accredited up to 300, nearly 380. These are probably from about 2 weeks ago. And we've engaged with over 1,000 GPs, which is not many. We've got a long way to go, but we're getting there because we've got 1,000 GPs who are talking to other GPs who are putting it on the radar. Our reach has been all over the country. Sorry, bit of a loud blur there. So we're everywhere, especially in the main cities across England. But you can also see that we've reached out to Scotland and to Wales and Ireland as well. And what we've done, and the most effective thing I've learned in this whole, it's not even a year, it's 9 months, is that webinars have been the best way to teach healthcare professionals. Short webinars, so an hour, 45 minutes, an hour, sometimes goes on for an hour and a half by the time you've had questions. And we've covered all kinds of topics. So each one is based on me doing the core talk with the nice guidance recommendations. And these are national webinars, but when we do a more specific one, we will give local voluntary sector advice, and if there's an NHS clinic, we would always talk about our service, of course, because we love it. And this is the feedback, and I'm not going to read this out, but the key has me doing these webinars with a lived experience person, and I can't tell you, it has been so powerful. Instead of me just standing up and doing a boring talk about nice guidance and trying to engage GPs, having someone tell a real story has been really, really powerful, and the feedback has shown that. And in fact, in terms of the Royal College picking us up and running with this programme, which they took a lot of, there was quite a lot of people who didn't want to run with it, but some inspirational people did run with it. We actually are the highest performing webinars. I don't know, they have these impact reports, and we're winning at the moment compared to, I don't know, the Royal College webinars on microbiology or something. So actually our topic is a bit more interesting, but we are coming out on top, so we're doing really, really, really well. So it's just, those are the type of webinars we've done, and then that's the next one. And then I think I'm on the last slide. Go on. We're back to, I'm the person next door. No. That's our future webinar. So we've got one with veterans, and that's very kindly from Neil from the Beacon, has linked me in with their veteran programme, so we'll have some experience there. And then the women's one, we've already done one, but it was so powerful. We got a huge amount of people signing up to be accredited after that. After hearing the lived experience colleague, that we're doing another one of those because it had a huge impact. So that's where we are. So in terms of answering your question, GPs are way behind, and we're doing our best to get them on this page because they do see so many people, and slowly but surely we're getting through. But the message is that it's not about the NHS, it's not about the voluntary sector, it's about all working together and giving patient choice and making sure that we see these patients quickly. And that's it. Thank you.